Welcome to KIMEcast, where we break through and cut the BS in sports medicine, rehabilitation, and sports performance, and talk about how things really work. Welcome to KIMEcast. Tony Mikla, Russ Dunning. So on this podcast, we talk a lot about the importance of health, the importance of sports medicine, and how we go about these types of things, and then best practices that we see in the field of play. So today we have a great guest. So Dr. Hunter Greene is with us today, who is an orthopedic surgeon here in Sacramento at Summit Orthopedics, which he's been in private practice there since 2005, so the better part of almost 20 years now. He's been a phenomenal friend of mine and a phenomenal partner in patient care for that entire duration, I have to say. So we just had so much collaborative work over the last 20 years, and it's great to have you here and to talk through some of the things you're doing, some of the things that are happening in the field, some of the things with patients that matter and make a difference and make a change. So welcome.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Yeah, I think the when I was in school, one that we learned was this the age of 30 was the bone density thing, right? So 35 hits this kind of peak.
It is. That's the bank. You're putting it in the bank. And then, so now I always tell people, now you're not adding muscle, you're just keeping what you have. Mm-hmm. So you're going to lose it if you don't do anything. It's a negative interest rate. It's like going away.
Right.
So you have to keep it. I don't tell people, you don't need to build muscle. You just need to keep what you have.
Right.
And so that's the same thing with bone density goes the same way. It's like, you're not going to get any more back.
Yeah.
You just have to keep what you have.
Yeah.
So.
Which is, just some sort of, like you said, you got to do some weight training. You have to actually lift iron against gravity. That's at the end of the day.
And then, the whole grip strength thing, things like that. It's like, one of the only key factors associated with longevity is grip strength.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter T was funny. He was talking the other day. He's like, I have these people that go out and buy these grip things. He's like, that's not really what I meant.
It's
like, you got to lift things.
That's the shortcut that's unfortunately doesn't really work. You got to hold something heavy and it challenges your spine and your hips and your knees and the whole body.
Or hang from something. There's a big carryover.
Yep. So there's dead hangs. There's the farmer's carries. And then they were talking to us and he's like, you should be able to do your body weight for 2 minutes. Like, that's a lot of weight for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
He said that is an exceptional sign if you can do that. Like, okay, that is pretty good.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, the dead hang times, things you should be able to do. It's like, okay.
I wish there was a better understanding, and maybe as an orthopedist, you have a great play on this. I think a cardiologist and an orthopedist, whoever all the specialists are, that say, if by age 30 or age 40, you could do these things, you're setting up for your 60s, 70s, 80s to be wonderful. And if you can't do these things, your downward, your decline is going to be too rapid. You're going to have a really nasty time the last third of your life.
But some of the interesting things is it's almost never too late to start. Mm-hmm. You can, but the tough side is that, they took, I don't know how old, I think 7-year-olds, trained them for a year, got muscle density, got this, did all of it. Like, you can do it. They stop for 2 weeks, it's all gone.
Yeah. Yep. Yet the loss is insane.
Lifestyle.
So it's like
lifestyle.
Yeah. So it's like you have to keep it, otherwise it goes away. Mm-hmm. Like I said, and that's like the surgery thing that I think we've talked about this too. I mean, I always tell my patients, I'm not a bed rest guy. You don't lay in bed. You get up and move after a surgery because you can't not have that. A week in the hospital is 3 months of recovery to get back what that laying in bed for a week was in the hospital.
The loss is so dramatic.
It's
unbelievable.
Terrifying.
Yeah. The research is so strong there. I mean, if bed rest 3 days, like 50% muscle loss,
It's
and then months to return.
Terrifying. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the big things that's cool about ortho. Like, since things we've learned, that's one of the biggest things I've seen implemented over, my lifetime, certainly the last 40 years. Like, in the 80s, right? You casted an ACL. Don't walk on it. Then you put him in immobilizer.
He's in the hospital for 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't let him get out of bed.
Yeah. And now it's like laughed at them with an ace wrap, and we'll see you later.
Like total knees are walking the same day. Like, go, let's go.
Yeah. Don't you dare sit down and don't lie down. You're gonna die.
I tell all my shoulder patients, I want you to be as healthy as possible. Just don't use your shoulder.
Yeah.
Do everything you want to do. Just don't use the shoulder.
Yeah.
Walk, ride your bike, or a stationary bike, things like that.
That might be the most important thing of the protocol. The typical post-op protocol, you have all these things, but if you don't walk and move, it's like, just throw the rest of it away. It's not going to do well.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you that, like, as a surgeon, I think that when you look at your experience with your patients, are there things you look for in the subjective portion when you get to meet them and talk to them, and then things you see when you're in there as far as tissue quality goes, like bone density or like tissue quality, that obviously that plays a role in your decision of how you do a repair or something? But and it plays a decision in how you look at the rehab process, of course, but.
Yeah, I think it's strange because there's always that kind of, the old terms kind of chronologic age versus physiologic age.
Right, yeah.
I think that's not nuanced enough for what it really is. We kind of looked at that before because I had this guy, he was a retired orthopedic surgeon, he used to assist, and he tore his cuff. He was 82. And you're like, okay, well, statistically, your chance of healing his cuff is less than 50%.
Okay.
If you look at a guy like that at 82 years old,
Yeah.
you're not probably going to heal this thing.
Yeah.
But surgically went in there, his bone tissue quality far better than most of my 7-year-old cuffs. So it was just like, okay, well, he's doing something right.
Yeah.
Whatever he's doing. He's staying active, whether it's mentally active or physically active, whatever it is, his tissues are like, well, we have to respond because he's making us do stuff. You're making them do something. So getting in here, I'm like, okay, this guy's probably going to do great because his tissue quality is good, bone density was fine. And other people, you get in there and they're 70 and it's like, ooh, I'm not sure how this one's going to go.
Yeah.
But so I think we don't know enough as far as physiologic age, chronological age. I mean, they do all these things where they can look at your DNA and, no, we don't have the data to really what that means. These guys are trying to bring down their age by doing all these, fancy things. And okay, well, what does that mean? We don't know. The things we do know is like all-cause mortality. What are you gonna die from? What are things? So if you look at, like you just said, the metabolic health is, far more important than like a BMI. Because your BMI, you're probably overweight.
I am.
Yeah.
That's the damnedest thing.
Yeah.
You called me out.
Yeah. But it is.
I hate looking at that thing. I'm like 25.1.
Yeah. But your metabolic health, based on your glucose monitor, says you're doing okay. So that's the biggest thing. And like I said, and we don't know exactly, this is probably a good thing, because those things, because you take a type 2 diabetic who's overweight, their mortality risk is far different than yours. So if you have you and let's say even your buddy that you're talking about, so your buddy, so I mean, his metabolic health is probably different, but BMI wise, probably pretty similar. Age wise, probably pretty similar. But for some reason, his metabolic health isn't where yours is, so his mortality risk is higher. But a lot of these things are correctable. You can kind of change them if you're willing to, if you want to. And if you have the discipline to make that happen.
I think the right feedback loop for most people's lives is so critical because unfortunately, by the time they meet you, something's torn, they're in a bad spot, they need help. Sometimes when they meet us, it's also torn, or maybe it's just inflamed.
Or they're recovering.
Oh yeah, or they're recovering from someone suturing them
They were
together.
down for a while. Yeah.
I wish most people had some kind of slap in the face that says, you're not doing well and you just don't know it yet.
There's no check engine light for people.
That's it. That's what we need. Everyone wants the phone to do that or the watch to do it.
Yeah.
That's the check engine light.
But
it's coming. That's for
there's
sure.
probably signals, but we ignore them. Just like everybody ignores their health.
Yes.
There's things, the people that have heart attacks probably knew they're going to have a heart attack. They just ignore the symbol because you don't want to admit
that it's you.
that you're getting short of breath, climbing stairs. You're making an excuse for that, like, whatever,
Yeah.
So those sort of things. I don't know if there's a warning sign for your cuff that's going to tear.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, probably history. Yeah.
Overuse, abuse, this and that, certain things, And like your knee arthritis, that one comes and lets you know. There's a check warning light because your knee swells.
I did not have an indication prior to my shoulder dislocation that was going to be a problem. I can tell you that for sure. That was a dive and like, yep, that's gone. Okay.
And it's out.
Okay. Yeah. So when you're in there though, and you're thinking about this, I'm sure is like what someone has like we don't see this much anymore, but someone has like a history of smoking, for example, you see a change in tissue quality.
Well, I mean, the tissue quality, healing potential, everything it is remarkable. I mean, the number of smokers that we deal with that I used to have to talk to because you could walk in the room and know.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it just
exudes from
permeates through them. Yeah. Their sling they brought in with them at the time of surgery. Like, good God. Like, this is ashtray? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, exactly.
But those sorts of things are so, few and far between now compared to what, even 10, 15 years ago.
That's unbelievable.
So
but you could just see that like on the inside. I think that's what's crazy, right? As you see
Yeah.
a human, we're like, oh, it looks like their skin's not very healthy. Maybe they're obese, smoker.
Yep.
And then you open it up and look at the inside tissue, and it's similar to the outside tissue shows.
Well,
Right?
I mean, it's just like we tell people, your scars are healing on the outside, you're still healing on the inside. So it mirrors the the inside as well, for sure. But I think one of the biggest things that we deal with now is probably more the obesity side of things, and it's just such a sensitive topic to talk about too, because it is, everybody has a mirror.
Yeah.
They know.
They know. Yeah.
It's like people, it's like, it's so much easier. You could tell someone, hey, you should quit smoking. And you're like, I know it's good for me. I know, because there's like the warning on the box, the carton when you buy it, they have to tell it.
Yeah.
But, being overweight it's like, everybody knows it's not good, but it's really challenging to do anything about it. Like, quit smoking. Okay, yeah, I can, I'll put my daughter's picture on the pack. I want to be around to see her. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a motivator. Good. All right. That's what's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
But being overweight, it's like, it's just a little bit.
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
Yeah. I usually ask them, like, are you trying to change your look or your weight, if it's like not sure where they're at in the process, A lot of times they open up with it like, hey, I'm trying to drop 50 pounds. I can't because my knee hurts, right? And sometimes it's the other way where it's like, my knee hurts. I don't know why. And it's like, well, I have an idea.
But it's funny, the people that have lost weight incidentally, around knee pain, and they're like, yeah, I lost 50 pounds, and my knee feels a lot better. Like, And it's like they kind of put the pieces together on that one, and I just need them to record that and tell other people, like, hey, this guy over here,
Yep.
this is what he figured out.
Yeah.
And you just tell them, hey, for every pound you lose, your knee loses 5. It's just a simple thing. It's
that's a big one.
I like that line. That's good. And obviously that speaks to the biomechanical part.
And that's not stairs, that's not impact, that's not anything. That's just walking around.
That's just
so if you add
load.
stairs or some sort of impact,
playing pickleball.
it's going 8 to 9 times. So those sorts of things, make a difference. You're doing your incidental farmer's carry, with your body weight, which is you shouldn't do. But I mean, for whatever reason, it's just a harder topic. And so when I address that with patients, I kind of just do it as the part of the multimodal approach. Okay, we're going to work on reducing inflammation, whether with corticosteroids, oral anti-inflammatories, something along that line. Okay, that's one way. Okay, we're going to, if we have, a mechanical issue with your knee, if you're falling into varus, we'll put you in an unloader brace. So biomechanically, we're going to make you better. Okay, and then we're going to make you stronger, more flexible, more supple through some physical therapy. And then, one of the other modalities we work on is, hey, if we can, I always put the if we can lose some weight, that'll definitely help you as well. And then, so if you don't tell them to lose weight, you tell them as an option, if we can get some weight off, that will help too. And they'll go, yeah. Because at that point, they all admit, yeah, I could lose some. But if you tell them, you're like, what are you saying, I'm fat? So it's a different sort of just
you put them in defense.
Thing they're saying, hey, these are things we can try. This is one of them. This is one of them. You just kind of mix it in there, so it's not. It's just one of the things we can do. There are lots of things we can do to help. They're all options to help you. And so it's but it's one of those things. But to your point too, as far as like, I can't lose weight because my knee hurts. Exercise is not the way to lose weight.
Not the problem.
It is the least productive way to lose weight. It's all nutrition, all calorie restriction. Making good choices. Proteins, fats, fibers, all those things that make you feel full. And that's the real thing that's going to make the big difference for you. And, it's always weight loss is in the kitchen, not in the gym. Everybody knows that.
It's a great line, though, a very important line.
The excuse is, I'm just heavy because I can't work out because my knee hurts. But they've proven time and time again, at post-total knee, no one loses weight.
Right.
Not at all. And it's not the weight of the implant that's keeping the weight on. It's not that. I got this heavy metal knee in me now.
That's what's weighing me down. This is my anchor.
That's the limiting factor.
But I mean, so it's just, because everybody thinks, I think it's from the jazzercise eras of the 80s and everything else, like, we got to work out to stay in shape. And
I think that's definitely the general theme is that people feel like exercise is the mode, but absolutely. I mean, the research is so strong here, and the evidence is that food is the mode.
1% of the people who can work out their diet. Olympic athletes who are these endurance athletes, swimmers, the cyclists, these guys they can probably eat 10,000 calories a day, and it really doesn't matter what it is, because they're just churning through everything they do.
Yeah, the metabolism is so high.
So that's the other thing. And then the other thing, as far as diet, we try to talk to people about too. These are my pushes, like I talked about the bone health, muscle health, and then now it's like getting the right nutrients in there. I said if you're building a house and you've got 3 2x4s, it's going to be a crappy house. It's not going to be good. You need a whole lot of resources to build that house, and nobody gets enough protein.
No.
And so that's the biggest problem, is trying to educate people on that end of it too, is, protein, fiber, these are the ways you need to kind of stay healthy. And fats, everybody's afraid of fat, but fat's good. Certain healthy fats are the right way to go. And I know I've heard you talk about it.
Become passionate about it. I think it's the only thing to really talk about it. I think blood glucose is, am I eating the wrong amount of carbohydrate? And then the next focus is, do I have the right protein fat? And I think the HDL to triglyceride is the ultimate tail. And then the quality of protein, because like you said, if you can't really build a house off of carbohydrates. So if you're reconstructing someone's tendon.
Well, we're not cows. So, cows can turn grass into protein. We can't.
They got like 6 stomachs, don't they? I mean, it's a very complicated system.
They're doing something.
Yeah.
Those are the animals that can eat grass and make protein out of it. We can't eat grass and make protein out of it. Yeah. We need protein to make what we need for amino acids, for our muscles, for everything else in our body. So that side of it. And then, the people are, I think, confused about kind of what healthy fats are.
Yeah.
And once again, fat's got this, it needs a newer marketing department, because it got just slammed.
Oh, yeah.
And sugar was okay.
Yeah.
For decades.
But fat got just the kind of black cloud of like, oh, it's so bad, and everything was non-fat. And during that time, everything was non-fat. To make it non-fat, they just put horrible stuff in it.
To
make it palatable.
It's like the non-sugar stuff is the same. It's horrible.
Well, it's the damnedest thing. I mean, I want to go back in the English language a few hundred years ago. Like, who decided that when you have a lot of weight on you that you're called fat? I mean, it's that person that really effed us for ages. It's like, oh, you're carbed up right there. You carbo.
Well, it's just something it's sugar based. That's what they should have called you.
You're such a sugary mess.
Look at the sugar handles you got there. Yeah.
Sugar handles. Yeah, because that's the wrong. My kids had that. They had that question while we were driving one day. They said, "Daddy, how does someone get fat?" And they're just blunt, right to the point. And I said, "Well, it's oddly enough, it's not from eating fat." And they're like, "That's crazy." I'm like, "I know, it is nuts."
It is. So I mean, I think I don't know how to remarket or make it okay. I think we're getting back to that a little bit, making it okay to have fat in your diet. Yeah. But I think it's, the fried food is not the fat you need.
Right.
It's the healthier side, nuts.
If it's crispy, it's bad fat.
Right. Yeah. And then, I think it means, all the seed oils and everything else that kind of is going on, that they've kind of, but I think that's, people say seed oils and no one knows what they mean.
Yeah. You don't. You almost have to say it's been heated in an ultra processed, mega building. You didn't just press the oil or press the olive and then there's the oil.
Right.
Yeah. If it was cold pressed extra virgin, it's pretty simple. We just smash it and then there's the fluid.
It's like a bug on your windshield. There it is.
Yeah. If I need a chemistry degree to do it, then it's probably not that great.
If you need a chemist to make your oil, then it's probably not a natural oil. Yeah.
If you had it your way, for every patient you have to go through orthopedic surgery, paint the perfect picture, post-operative of a cuff repair or a meniscectomy or a meniscus repair, something reconstructive.
Yeah, ACL, whatever.
What's the ideal? The Hunter Greene protocol. That's not the exercises. I know you trust us,
but I think so many things that's a great question, because the therapy side of it is, I think, pretty well studied, pretty well known. Like ACLs and cuffs, probably some of the most studied as far as rehab in the things that we do. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Other than hips and knees, but once again, I think still ACLs and cuffs have a huge breadth of literature that explain how to rehab those, and the outcomes and the timing and when to start resistance, all that stuff. So that's out there. But I think the things that are not seen are one, nutrition, stress. I think huge portion of that is impacting how we heal.
Tremendous.
Sleep, all those things. So, and shoulders don't let you sleep. So that's the hard part.
Yep.
They're horrible.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
find a way to sleep. Take the pain medication if you need to. Get in the recliner. And people are like, oh, I'm in my recliner. Great. Are you sleeping? Yeah. Okay. Your bed's going to be there when you get back.
Yeah.
You don't have to be in bed. It's okay.
Don't force it. Yeah.
And I tell them, hey, as long as it's working, go get the rest there. Get the rest there that you need, because that's okay. Be there. That's fine.
Yeah.
Don't rush. Don't be uncomfortable. Don't toss and turn in your bed. Don't be afraid to lay on that shoulder because you're in a bed. Yeah, sleep in the recliner. It's okay. And it's funny because I talk to people that talk to me about when they can go back to work. And I said, well, what do you do? Find out this, and that. And for some people, it's more stressful for them to be away from work than to actually work. So I'll tell you, okay, if it's worse for you not to be working than off work, if you're off work and you're stressed about work, then go back to work, because you'll be less stressful probably. So just trying to find those sorts of things. I think those are the things that and just that healthy mentality. And it's a shame because people understand therapy after surgery, but there's, for whatever reason, it probably needs a marketing department like that. It's like therapy prior to surgery to make them better so they don't need surgery. It's not going to work. Like, well, how do you know? Did you try it? It can be really good. So that's the hard part too, is that for whatever reason, the full faith in after surgery, rehab, yes. But rehab before surgery, like, oh, that's not going to work. What do you mean? It's like, and this time is such a good thing too, because people always blame about, it took so long to get you see I'm better now.
Yeah.
Now, wait a minute.
Are you upset?
Wait a minute. If I would have saw you a month ago, I may have told you needed surgery.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But now we've had some time and you're looking good. You're heading in the right direction. You don't need surgery. You probably just need a little rehab to top you off and get you back in the right place.
Yep.
So I mean,
how much patience should you have?
That's the funny thing. It's like, time is your friend. That's what I always tell people. And so, yeah. And people would say, if I saw you a month ago when I was hurting, I would have signed up for surgery right away. Now I'm like, I don't think I need surgery. Like, you're right, you don't. So
there's a huge American way there where it's like, hey, I want to get fixed. It's broken. The MRI says it's broken. You have to fix it. Or I need a pill for it, or I need to have surgeries. That's all it's going to fix it. It's broken.
The word fix drives me nuts.
Yeah, right.
Or the other one that they say, I just want to be normal. Nope. I tell you, if they use the word fix or normal, it's
not good.
Time out. Hold on. We got to talk.
Yeah.
Because the fix is not surgery and you're better. Surgery is the 1 or 2 hours that I do something. The next 9 to 12 months is you. And that's where your fix is in that time. The surgery is one thing. I mean, we can do surgery and cadaver surgery on you. It's the same surgery. But, one of you is going to get a lot better, though.
One has better blood flow.
Yeah. One has much better healing potential. But the other thing is normal. I always tell them, listen, you are not going to be normal after surgery.
Yeah.
We cannot make you the way you were. Yeah. Car gets in an accident, straighten the frame out, paint it all up, make it look good. But you'll always know that car was an accident when you're driving it. You'll always know. Same thing with your body. You'll always know you had surgery. You always know you had an injury, whether it's surgery or not. I mean, you always know you had an injury. Yeah. I mean, it's going to stay with you. But I prefer the term functional.
Yeah.
We're going to make you functional. We're not going to make you normal, because I don't know what normal is. You're not going to be normal anymore. Something happened to you. You've been injured. But we're going to make you functional. And that's I was telling the big difference between, range motion, like, with the shoulders. We may not get all your range of motion back, but we'll make you functional. What does that mean? Okay, well, you may not get all the way up here, but you only need to be here most of the time.
Yeah.
Unless you're an electrician, you're up here, and even those guys aren't there that much, Yeah. So that's, we talked about the big difference between normal and functional.
Yeah.
Because if you really ask them, what do you want afterwards? I just want to be able to do this. Okay. What, do you need that range of motion to do that? No.
Yeah.
But you want to be functional. So that's the big thing is making it functional.
I love that the zoom out approach you had there about when you're working with the patient, like to answer the question about the post care, what's it look like? Like that zoom out thought process is so good. I think you only get this with someone with a lot of experience, because I find like in my brain after doing this for 20 years, like we have the same 4 pillars, like movement, sleep, nutrition, stress management. And if one of those four or two of those four are out of whack, then we're in trouble. But it's not about the most micro detail of even the surgery or of the rehab process. But if you don't have good sleep, if you have too much stress in your life about whatever the topic, or you're not eating well, I mean, this little micro detail over here makes no difference at all. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's a huge lesson for someone to hear. Like it's in a mode of like every little detail. It does. I'm not saying that those details are not important, and those details come more naturally to you. So it's not we're talking about. But I think it's just a great perspective, because if those things that's what I've learned as well. You can do exactly the same surgery, exactly the same rehab protocol on two people that tissue was identical, but if they have different sleep patterns, they have different stress levels, they will heal very, very differently and a very different outcome.
Yeah, but and we'll take something on that. You take a professional athlete, okay? Mm-hmm. So that's their job. They're being paid to do this. Yeah. Someone is very vested in them being able to get back out there in the field. So, there's a nutritionist that focuses on their post-operative nutrition, making sure they have everything they need so they can heal right. They have someone making sure that they're sleeping well. They have somebody so their therapy starts immediately. They don't have them lay in bed.
Immediate next day.
So all those pillars you talked about, stress, yeah, hey, know your job's there when you get back. Don't worry, you're out for the season. We know it. Don't worry about it. Focus on your rehab. Get back. We missed playoffs this year because you're not there. That's fine. Next season's coming. Mm-hmm. We need you then.
This is the 49ers have said this many times this season.
Yeah. So that
John Lynch every day is like, it's all right, bro. It'll be next year. We'll be back next year.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example where someone has like you just asked me, what's your ideal recovery? Is that person. Therapist wakes up at you at the bedside. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're there as they're waking up. Hey man, let's get your recovery going. Let's make this great. Yeah.
Let's start walking.
let's get this rolling. Your nutritionist's like, here are your meals. Okay, good. So that is, but we're normal people. They also have obviously a higher level of achievement and things that we can't do, or I can't do. I mean, for sure. I mean, these are professional athletes, and they are just in a different gear, different level. But if we could all be treated that way in the recovery time, it would be great.
That's what we all want.
We all have our thing. You do this in the OR where you act like they do in the OR, and it's you've worked your ass off to be skilled at it, and you act like a professional athlete. But they're also crazy. They don't do everything perfect, that's for sure. But the things they do well, but their tissue is magical, that's for sure.
Yeah, but the reason, on their own, they would probably be disaster.
Yeah, disaster.
But since someone, essentially has a vested interest in them to get back out there because of their skill that they have, they're going to make sure that these things happen. So that's why when they wake up, the therapist is there holding their hand. Let's go to the gym.
Let's do this.
Because otherwise they may just lay in bed for a little bit. It's like, it hurts. I don't want to do this. That's
a huge part of our coaching is that same thing, right? We see the person. And I feel like that's what's missing in the major medical model, right? Is that if you are a pro athlete, you do get all those services, and it's exactly that. Like if you have surgery, in the recovery process, you can start exercising, like you said, everything but your shoulder. Well, that's going to mean that your cardiovascular health is better, your blood is better, and if you got better blood, the blood's going to flow to the arm, so you get better healing, which is the key to the whole process. But if you're just laying around, like becoming more dormant.
Well, I always tell people, if you don't tell your body to be healthy, it's not going to be healthy. So that's why go out and do stuff, move, be active, because your body's like, tendons respond to load, bone responds to load, these things. So if they're not loaded, why do they need to be there? You have to push it, you have to structure it, you have to tell it. It's Wolff's laws you learn in orthopedics. Form follows function.
I love that line.
Just boom. So if it's not being told it needs it, and the body's extremely efficient. That's why when you lay in bed, okay, if we're not using this protein, we're going to use it someplace else. So take it out of the muscle, go in someplace else, or we just pee it out. There you go, gone.
Muscle's the most expensive tissue in the body, right? So the body does not want to.
Requires a lot of energy to keep alive, all this stuff like that. It's the calorie expenditure to keep that muscle alive is a lot. Okay, if we don't need it, we're not feeding that guy.
Let's get rid of it.
100%.
As you were saying, as a therapist, sometimes I'm an accelerator for people. I'm trying to motivate them to do more. Sometimes I'm a little bit of like gas and brakes, like driving around in town. And then for the elite level, I'm like the brakes. Like I can't do that yet. Nope, you can't do that yet. But you can do these things. And I'm constantly trying to hold them back because their systems like, it's time to go. I want to push this rehab as hard as I can. So it seems to be kind of a gradient of the therapist being the accelerator for the unmotivated and the brakes for the ultra motivated, and maybe, the in between. We're driving around town. Do you find yourself a little bit in a similar, role?
I mean, my partner, Dr. Sassuor, says all the time, he's like, for his patients, he does a lot of joint replacement work. So those are tough. I mean, that's a tough recovery. Those are hard. So, his post-op points, it's like, I'm just a cheerleader. Hey, you're doing great. You're doing great. This is where, you're doing great. I tell my patients all the time, it's like, it's where you should be, not where you want to be. And it's like, this is where you should be in your recovery. You want to be here. I tell everybody, at 6 weeks, you want to be at 6 months, but you just can't be. You'll get there. But that's the two things I say all the time in the recovery is like, you're where you should be, not where you want to be. And everybody at 6 weeks wants to be at 6 months, and you can't be there. And to your point too, I have like my younger kids that, especially the ACL kids, those ones, I mean, they're super motivated. They want to do it. Okay, I said, take all that energy and put it into things you can do. And that's, like I said, instead of the brakes model, like, no, we're not slowing you down. We're just telling you to do these things really well and focus on the things you can do, the do's, don't do the don'ts, put all your energy into the do's. And that's because, like I said, no one wants to be, shut down, put the brakes on them. But I mean, those people you do have to really lash in a little bit and okay, let's go.
Corral the energy, refocus.
That's
a great way of looking at it.
Because I really think those are the things, those people, because they want to do better, they want to do great, they want to get out there. You just have to show them what they can do. And so, because they want to be, otherwise they go crazy. They go nuts. So you have to just really focus them in on what they're able to do to stay healthy, to do these things. And like, hey, we're still doing this. I love telling people, there's plenty of work from the fracture world where, I put a cast on your arm. If you work out that arm, you get less atrophy on this arm. It's fracture disease. You can prevent that fracture disease and like, man, these people's eyes are like, wait, what? I mean,
I can do this?
I don't want to get this arm really,
I can do this?
I don't want to get this arm really big because this one's not working. Like, no.
What a line it is,
Keep this one because this one's not going to lose as much. Like, really? Like, yeah.
I get that question today. I get it almost once a week. If I work out too hard on this one, I don't want to make it asymmetrical. I'm like, it already is asymmetrical. That's why you're here. Don't worry.
We'll play catch up later.
Yeah, exactly.
But just, hey, give this one a good goal to get back to this one.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
I think that is the best way to manage those folks that are, they have an injury. They do need to be immobilized for a period of time. And then a lot of the, I've heard docs in the past or PTs would be like, you can't do anything. You can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. It's like, man, we have a huge focus on, let's talk about what you can do. Because he'll be a lot more patient, like, hey, just wear that sling, but I want you to go, whatever, maybe you can do a bike or you could do something or you could do other arm exercises. Get them sweating again, get them feeling like an athlete. They'll feel better, and then their testosterone level will be balanced. And I mean, the whole thing, they're like, oh, okay, I feel alive. I just can't use my arm.
I'm very calm and patient most of the time with people, but when somebody tells you something like that, like, who told you that? Who told you that?
Yeah. The bear comes out.
They told me, like, I can't do that. Who told you that?
Yeah.
Because that's not right. You need to do these things.
Yeah.
Like, I get like,
what?
That's I really get fired up over that. No. You got to do these things.
Yeah.
And people like that. Like, oh, really? I can do that? Like, yes, do that. Yes.
Do you think? I mean, I know you're an athlete yourself. You're a big mountain biker. Do you think that your involvement in aggressive fitness and sports and all the activities that you do, does it put you differently than other orthopedists? I don't mean to make it talk shit on other orthos, but do you think that there is a disconnect in the orthopedic community of how you like motivating movement and maybe other orthos are not as encouraging? Tough question.
No. I mean, like I said, not to. I mean, I don't live in their practice, so I don't know what they're saying. But I can say for what I like to say is that because I'm active and because I do things, I really I get it. I understand. I want to be out there. I want people doing out there, and I always tell people I'm not really going to tell you not to do things. And that's the with people when they ask me, okay, I've got this thing coming up. I've got this thing coming up. I said, okay, well, we're not going to say no. We're going to see if we can get you there. It's like it's a possibility. Let's see if we can get you there. So I always want to have that potential for you getting there. And some things are like, hey, after seeing their knee or after seeing their hip, like running's probably not going to be your primary thing. That's not, if you want to prove me wrong, hey, you come back and tell me you're running 6 miles a week and you're feeling great. I'll say, hey, I was wrong. Good job. Prove me wrong in some of those, but so you have to have some realistic expectations. I'm very big on expectations with people. So having realistic expectations, but I think as far as, doing what I like to do, and I know like I don't want to be sidelined from what I like to do. So I want to get you back to what you want to do, and that's, it's funny, like our office tagline is saving lifestyles, we don't save lives, but we save lifestyles. So we're getting people out there because that's, what do we live for, but for having the fun part,
That's what it's for.
We all enjoy our work a lot, so we're blessed with that sort of thing, but we also like to have fun and play and do the other things. So, I mean, that's one of the things that, if you can move, and I think everybody should move, that, find what you like to do, whether it's pickleball, professional sports, pick up basketball, hunting, hiking, whatever it is, go out there and do it. And if you can't do it, we want to help you get back to doing that. That's the big thing.
Yeah. I've always loved your perspective on this. I think it comes probably from your history, but always being an athlete, really high level competitive tennis player.
Yeah.
And then you were into personal training, I believe, before you went to orthopedics.
Did a little bit of that in college, yeah.
Before you went into
brief stint.
Yeah.
But I think that knowledge of exercise and that passion for it, and then watching and then mountain biking now and doing the things you're doing. And we did this, right? When you couldn't bike and run the way that you wanted to, you picked up archery.
Yeah.
It's like I gotta do something else mentally. I need a new skill set to learn and something I can do where I couldn't do something else, So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you're doing some sauna stuff now for your own health as well.
Yes. Yeah. So
Tell
that
me
was
that. What you got going?
Yeah. So that was just kind of, I try to stay out there in health and fitness and everything else, looking and being, there's, the cold plunge, there's the sauna. Cold plunge is good. I think there's a recovery aspect to it, but, from a longevity and kind of this health span sort of side of it, I think the saunas definitely have much more, the finish, there's tons of literature on this stuff. So I went in that direction. I've got a pool I'll get in when it's cold, so that's fine.
You get to contrast.
Yeah, I can do that. But as far as, just the one stat that just blew my mind was, if you do 4 or more days a week at 20 minutes in the sauna, 40% reduction in all-cause mortality. It's like,
wow.
Well, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. I can be around a little longer.
What are the rules from your knowledge? I know you follow Peter Attia.
Yeah.
What are the aspects of 20 minutes? Does it matter how hot?
Yes.
Is it morning, afternoon? What little nuances
Timing doesn't
there?
think, I mean, there's some people where you can do, multiple sessions. I tend to try to do it after my workout. And they say sometimes if you have a hard workout, then you can do like shorter time because your heart rate's already elevated, your body temp's already elevated, you're already kind of in that warmed state. But I usually try to just stick to 20 minutes because it's easier, because by the time sauna is hot and everything else like that, I get to it. So I try to time it around that a little bit, or I do it at the end of the day. So if it's like weekends, I can try to time it around, because I do usually longer workout on the weekends. So I can kind of pair it with that. Otherwise, I try to do it when I get home. So probably around 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, I'll do it then. And just, listen to a podcast. I don't know. I have to get my glucose monitor now, because I usually like take little frozen grapes in with me. Because I just pop one of those every 2 minutes.
Keep the mouth cold while your body's heating up.
Yeah. So
Could be a mistake.
Every 2 minutes, a little cold grape. I don't know.
From the chart.
Yeah. But no. So, that is, and like I said, I just got it through Costco. Super easy. It sits in my garage. My wife was worried what it looked like. She's like, "Oh, it actually looks nice." I'm like, "Yeah, it does look nice." So it's great. I've got my boys do it when they're home visiting. Haven't convinced my wife to do it yet.
Yeah. Really, you just time, I'm sure.
Yeah, and just the sweaty thing. Yeah, because you get really sweaty.
Well, we die sooner than them anyways, so maybe it's not even needed.
I'm just trying to keep up with her. I'm just trying to keep up with her. Yeah.
There you go.
And she does great stuff for her fitness too. So but I mean, it's fascinating, and it's weird when you do it pretty consistent. Oh, temperature wise, yeah. So I think I forgot. It's about 173, which I think it's about 80 degrees Celsius. I think I'd have to. I don't know, but it's somewhere around there. And and it's funny. It definitely takes my sauna a lot longer to heat up in the now times than in the summer, because like in my garage in the summer it sits about 100 degrees anyway. So it's like boop right there. Yeah, it gets there in no time. Just leave the garage door open in the afternoon and it's up there. But it is, and it's a peaceful time. At first, it was kind of like, mentally, now like 20 minutes is like, oh, it's up, it's done, okay. And it's weird. I like went into this phase where like, okay, I'm sweating much later than I used to. Like I'm like the last time now I'm sweating. Like before, like within 5 minutes, like you're like, you're going. Yeah. So I don't know all the different
the cellular response
of that, and just the different things, but it's kind of. It feels good. I mean, you sleep well, I think, for sure.
Yeah, there you go again. Back to the sleep thing.
Yeah.
I think shit that's old. It's the Roman baths. I mean, this has been around for centuries.
Like I said, the Finnish have immense data on this stuff. Immense. And they have national health registries, so they know who's doing what and what's going on. So that's the beauty of it. And like I said, it's worth it. So it's great. I really, and like I said, it's just kind of my time too. I get to listen to a podcast. Yeah, chill out. Yeah. Usually enjoy the KIMEcast. It's good.
Well, it's so fascinating. Like, I just think we're getting older. More tech enhanced, more AI, more computers. People are living on their cell phones, and really, we're talking about getting out in the sun, going for a deep sweat, doing a hard workout. Going to sleep on time. It's like it is kind of fascinating how we're talking about things that the Romans and the Finns, and everyone from yesteryear. They all knew that very well, but we don't know it. It's not common knowledge now.
Old hunter-gatherer sort of thing is where you work hard, you chase an animal down, you do something, so you're exerting yourself. And I forgot who had said it, but it was just great. It's like, okay, your 20, 30 minute, maybe an hour workout, not making up. I think you probably said it doesn't make up for your 8-hour workday. Yeah, and it's like you got to just keep moving. And fortunately, for like what I do and what you guys do.
We're moving all day.
You're forced to move.
Yeah.
Like if I'm in the OR, I'm stand there for a little bit, but also moving around. You're exerting yourself. Or, some of the stuff we do takes some strength in. And then in clinic, like I'm every 5-10 minutes I'm up moving out of the room, going examining people, doing resistance work all day long. I'm doing resistance on people, and so you're doing stuff. You're moving. So I don't think I could survive at a desk job.
No.
I couldn't sitting there doing that. And so it's one of those hard things where it's you have to really continuously move, do things to make up for what our lives make us do. Yeah. So that's one of the things you definitely have to kind of do. And so that's kind of the interesting part. But
it's a tough pull in this culture, for sure. Because I had to sit for periods of time and do like some sort of work. And it's like, man, more than like an hour or two, and it's tough.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we see it. I love it at a conference, right? If we go to a therapy conference or a medical conference, right? They have like 500 people in the room and all these chairs, and everyone's staying around the perimeter. No one will sit. No one can sit more than like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, doing those those meetings where you're long days sitting and it's like, this is just not good for me.
You could feel it. Yeah. 2 hours in there, you're like, oh my God.
This is not normal.
Which is great. I mean, it's the same thing with like eating, right? You eat really good stuff and then you have something bad. And you're like, well, this is not good.
Yep.
You can know right away.
As you get older, you have so much less tolerance for not good food.
Oh, yeah. All right, there's some new stuff coming our way here in Sacramento. You've been here a long time. We've done a lot of teams together before. We had the Mountain Lions, which was a pro football team that was here back in the day. Of course, we've had the River Cats for a long time, and then now we have
the pro team tennis when the Sacramento Capitals.
Yes,
I remember
that. That was a great event.
Yeah, worked with those guys. I did the USA Pro Rugby when they were here.
Right, we had rugby for a while.
Yep. So we had all these different things, and yeah. So now we're gonna get the athletics as they are known now.
We're taking away the city completely.
Well, I don't. It hasn't settled yet. I mean, I was just at the MLB Winter Sports Conference, and one of the slides had the Sacramento A's on it, but I don't know if they're,
they don't want that.
Yeah.
They're a little
currently they're the Athletics. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to work as one of the team physicians with those guys. So really excited about that. It's going to be interesting. And like I said, at this MLB sports meeting, like the first night in, Friday night when we got there, it's a research night. And it was all about UCL stuff. I mean, just every paper.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's the moneymaker in the league. It's like, it's unbelievable the science that is put into this stuff. And I realized, and I wanted to talk to you about this when I was here, is that whether it's, basketball, NFL, MLB, the research being done, it's one of those really interesting things because once again, this is what funds their athletes staying out there, doing what they can do, getting back out there after injuries. I'm sure the MLB obviously has all upper extremity stuff. I mean, there's very paucity of kind of hip and knee type stuff in baseball players. Very uncommon, sort of thing. It's all upper extremity stuff, especially in the throwing population.
Sure, that's insane.
Obviously, there's some twisting stuff with the baseball, the hitting, things like that. So they get some oblique injuries, they get low back, they get things like that. But vast majority of everything is because that's where the money's at. You look at the teams, and half the team is pitchers. It's one of those things.
You see stuff there that you just don't see anywhere else, like oblique strains and lat tears. Like you just don't see that, in the general population. But if you're operating a major league team, you're going to see it once a season, twice a season.
So those and what is trying to get at is like the research being done here is kind of like trickle down. So if you look at the high end cars, all the technology in the S-Class Mercedes, it trickles down to those other ones later on.
Sure.
So this sort of research does the same sort of thing, is that this high-end research, so all the UCL research that's going on within the MLB, I'm sure there's a ton of ACL data that goes on in the NFL because that's a high-end, probably.
In the MLS,
MLS as well. And, NBA, there's probably a lot of Achilles stuff.
Tendon.
There's a lot of tendon stuff. So all that stuff that's designed to figure out how to keep their athletes playing gets trickled down to the general population. So it's really valuable information that is taken from these leagues because they fund it, they support it because it means a lot to them.
Yep.
And it's each team has their secret formulas for how they train, how they condition, how they do their athletes. But the general science is like, so that was neat, really neat to see at this meeting, is that everybody's sharing, everybody's talking. It's fascinating too, because when you think about it, there's 30 teams. So it's like, one of the docs said, this is just like a 30-man practice. We're all working together to take care of these guys because the visiting team doesn't send a doc. So you cover the visiting team there. So you go over, and if something going on, you call up their doc, and just like one of your practice partners, hey, Steve, I saw your player. This is what's going on. And, okay, great, thanks. We'll check him out when he gets back. Or, hey, we'll get him set up for some imaging when he gets back, or whatever it is. It's kind of just neat. I'm curious to see how this all plays
culture.
out.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was very giddy, kind of excited to be part of this thing. It's really neat. These guys all know each other. They've been doing, some of these guys have been doing a long time. It's crazy. And then some of them take care of NFL teams where they're at, because there's something like that there too. So it's just, and then the differences between what they say that happens in the NFL and what happens in the MLB, and I'm sure there's. So,
politics,
talk to our Kaiser friends here about what goes on with it in the NBA. There's a lot of it, and then there's definitely some rules too, as far as how you from our side of it, it's just take care of the players.
Sure,
but there's ways that theoretically you can manipulate some of the medical side to assist in either trades or things like that. So it's like, okay, I just want to take care of people. I don't want to learn that side of it. But but there's definitely talk about, things have to be done the right way. How you notify when someone's going on the deal list, how you do all these things. So it's just stuff.
Because now your opinion has probably an incredible money tag attached to it.
Well, there's a domino effect, that goes along with that, whether this person's going to stay on the team, not stay on the team, get, somebody that wants to be, in a draft, pulling somebody over, a trade, if the trade's going on, we got to, okay, who's that guy coming?
Yeah. Well, this happened with the guy from the Astros was the most famous one, Correa. Correa was like about 2 years ago. The Astros released him, and the other teams, of course, do all the medical records. They take him through physicals, and they look back at the medical records, and he had an MRI that showed a knee defect that he'd had for a little while, but he had no symptoms and no problems, so he never really even occurred to him it was a problem, right? But many of the docs were like that. I think it was supposed to be a big deal. It was supposed to go to the Yankees or to the Mets or something for like huge money, and they're like, no, because of your conjugal defect, like we're not signing you. Like it was the deciding factor. And they ended up going to the Twins, and the Twins ended up, they evaluated him enough and talked to him enough, interviewed enough people. Were like, we'll take the risk on this, knowing that because the MLB is like guaranteed money. Yeah. So it's different than the NFL, where the NFL is not guaranteed money for the most part. So in the MLB, they say they're going to give you an 8-year contract or a 10-year deal. Like you're getting it, whether you're on the field or you're not.
So, that's the amazing part about these pitchers. They'll sit for 18 months after they're getting paid. Yep. Like wow, I want that job.
Wow.
No one's going to give me that job. but it is just fascinating. The kind of the aspects of it all is that the amount of money put into these people, and it's just like it has to come back somewhere, and it comes back somewhere for sure. Because, I mean, winning's important.
Yeah.
Winning's like everything. I mean, that's like you're not there. You're not there just. It's not fun. You're there to win. I mean, that's the main thing, because that's how you generate profits.
That's it.
And everyone else wins with that. Everyone else tied to the team and the city, and all. It's quite the rippling effect.
Jersey
it's,
sales, TV,
everything.
So, everything. Yeah.
You're now part of that puzzle.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but excited about it. Yeah, it's going to be good.
I think that's fantastic. That's a good point too, about just having that collaborative team of people around you, like other peers that are best in class at what they do around the country. I think those guys are. Yeah, they're the ones doing the research. They're the ones moving the needle forward on every front. New surgical procedures. Whatever it might be. Kind of like, hey, what if we tweak this? I remember I was at a conference where it moved the needle big time. It was, Andrew. It was one of Andrew's conferences, the ASMI down in Birmingham. He was there. Elatrash was there. HSS was there. Dave Alchuk from HSS was there, and they were all sharing the stage together. And then also Keith Meister from the Rangers was there.
Yep.
So, and at that time, Keith was like one of the young bucks, and we were up there, and Keith got up, and we were talking about labor repairs. This was back in like 2006, 2007. And Keith's like, I know we've been repairing this labrum for a while. He goes, but I got to say, I'm not sure we should be fixing these the way that we're fixing these. And I'm starting to move away from doing it, just debriding them and leaving them alone. And at that time in that group, for him to say that at that conference was quite bold. When you look at like those guys invented the slap repair, and like it's been put Major League Baseball was what was going on. And he kind of challenged the status quo at the time. And then now looking back, like 15 years later, this is exactly what's happening. It's like getting a slap repair nowadays is rare compared to what's the bicep tenodesis or other strategies to minimize the impact. You going in there and tightening up a labrum may not be the best interest of a thrower. Basically, is where we're at in this stage.
And in recovery-wise, is markedly faster.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, they're back out there so much quicker without any real functional impact. Because the slap repair, you're parked on the bench for a while.
The first 5 years of my career, I probably spent 90% of my time rehabbing slap repairs.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and now
including your own.
No, I didn't have a repair. It's torn.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I've never had an image to be proven, but it comes out of the socket, so I know it's torn.
He had faith in therapy.
Yeah,
he did.
Yes.
Wow, how about that?
Yeah, amazing. And I just stopped doing stupid shit. So it's an amazing combination of effects.
Well, that's one of the other things. We talked about all the kind of things you say to your patients. Realistic expectations are super important, and also afterwards, one of the things, make smart choices.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that's one of the things that so in your activity realm, make smart choices. Okay, if you've got some arthritis going on, if you got a recovery from a surgery, let's not try to set our personal best, a month after surgery. Let's not try to do that. Let's not try to have do a big event 2 months after surgery. Let's make smart choices in your recovery. Smart choices, knowing now, because once again, the cat's out of the bag once we get into a joint. We know what's going on there. We know what your card looks like. We know what your ligaments look like. We know what your tendons look like. We know. It's not, MRIs are good, they tell us information. X-rays are good, they tell us information. But once we've been in there, it's 100%. We know. So it's out of, we know what's going on.
It is the gold standard.
Yeah. So now that we know what's going on, we need to make smart choices. Let's be good about how we treat our body moving forward. Not being inactive, but in the activities we choose, let's make the smart choices with the activities we choose.
Yeah. I think that's critically important. I'll say, just to add to my own story, that I don't have any pain. It doesn't keep me up at night, anything like that. So I don't have any impact on my lifestyle. Like, I can still play basketball, do what I want to do. I can still mountain bike. I can still do whatever. The things I can't do, I can't really rock climb, is a little dicey. And if I really trained for it, I probably could work it out, but there'll still be challenges. Like up and away, it's just probably not, with full body weight, it just isn't my best interest. And then I have to be a little careful wakeboarding.
Yeah, traction.
But I'm okay with those two options to be minimized in my life and totally fine. It doesn't justify having surgery.
You're the perfect example of what I tell my patients. So if you give up 5-10% of things you want to do to avoid surgery, completely worth it. Completely worth it.
Yeah.
You give up 50% of the things you like to do.
Yeah.
You need, and I would never say you have to have surgery. What I tell them is, 5-10% of things, give it up so you don't have to have surgery, fine. 50% of things impact, you should consider surgery as an option. Still not saying you have to have surgery, but if you're giving up this many things you like to do, consider it. it probably can try to get you back into that more functional realm.
That's my biggest thing. I think that what I see people when they ask that question to me is like, hey, do you think like, should I take the next step? I don't want to have surgery. What should I do? And it's that thing. I also weigh in heavily on like what their future lifestyle is. Like some people say, well, I can get away without running, so I don't need to have surgery to run. I said, well, that's good because you shouldn't have surgery necessarily to run. That's a tough ask, in most situations. But I said, what concerns me is that if you don't get your whatever it is, knee, ankle, hip better, if you start becoming inactive and start gaining weight and start becoming unhealthy and you got 40 or 50 years potentially to go, that you're paying a lot bigger price than just not running. You're paying a price of you're not healthy. And if your orthopedic issue led you to be unhealthy, that I think is a choice that's a problem that a lot of them can't see the lens on. But
well, yeah, I use research there on 7,500 steps. If you're not at least walking, a few miles of steps often, most days of the week, you're shortening up your life and you don't know it. And so if ankle, knee, hip hurts and you're reducing how much you're walking, just look at your phone and see the steps you're taking, or your ability. If you walk for 3 miles and your knee swells, something has to change. You can't take away that because you're really taking away your life. So I think protecting lifestyle is a great mantra. But then also looking at the health span, saying, well, how long do you want to live?
Yeah, and how well do you want to live?
How well do you want to live?
Yeah, that's the important part.
Yeah.
Because you can be around, and be miserable, but you want to be there and be happy and healthy as you do it for sure.
Yeah.
we had this experience with you not too long ago at the anatomy lab, which I just thought was amazing. And I've had the opportunity to go to the anatomy lab where you're doing surgery work, where this is a lab environment where Dr. Greene can be in there and he's practicing arthroscopy and he gets a chance to use the latest and greatest techniques and tools. This is at PacMed down in Tracy, which is a great opportunity. So I got a chance to go with you several times. I've seen it several times and it's amazing. And you did something beyond the norm in this last one. One, I love your willingness and passion to teach, but more so than that, you not only went through the arthroscopic surgery, but then you kind of just moved on to the full-on knee disarticulation.
Yeah.
Which was fantastic because it took me back to real anatomy where you really do the dissections. And that's really where as a clinician, we get to learn the roots of how this stuff works, and how it interacts and seeing the tissue in 3 dimensions and then seeing a patient live later on and being all right, I can see how these things are interacting, how they come together. But I thought that was everything from, okay, let's cut out the meniscus and look where all the attachments are and all these details about it. It was a tremendous experience.
Yeah, when you start to section things away and see what happens. Okay, well, let's cut the MCL. Whoa, okay.
How well
that's not good. Yeah. But then it's also amazing, some things, there's still some stability somewhere. Where's it going? And start cutting more stuff. Okay. But how it can really hang on with so little there, it is kind of amazing. But from the kind of structural engineering side of things, some things in our body are built so well.
Yeah.
And other things are I always joke with people the biceps tendon, that guy didn't pass in his engineering class or the shoulder in and of itself. The shoulders, and you guys know, what a horrible joint. I mean, I always tell people, okay, if you told somebody, okay, on that wall, I want you to mount a pole that can hold 10 pounds out here, but you can only attach it to one point on this thing. They're like, wait, what?
And it has to be able to move in 360 degrees in almost every direction.
Exactly, yeah. And none of these stabilizer bars going down this way.
Yeah.
You can have a few things kind of coming off it a little bit, but they're only to about this far in.
Yeah.
And you're that's impossible. That'll never work.
Yeah.
And yet shoulders do amazing things. I mean, the throwing motion's the fastest human movement. It's crazy.
Incredible.
But I mean, that one, that one we didn't do. It's amazing. No wonder shoulders get injured all the time. It's it's just destined to fail.
Yeah.
And the
It's a tough ask. It's a tough ask.
So those are the fascinating things about that. How some things are so, and just ability to heal. I mean, our ability to heal is bones. That's what we do. We love it. I mean, bone's one of those unique tissues that heals without scar. You only have 2 tissues in our body that do that: liver and bone. Everything else scars. So bone heals and it just makes new bone. And it's constantly turning over. Everybody knows our skin just kind of stops. But when you tell people that, oh, your bone's constantly remodeling, what? Yeah, it's just, I always tell people it's like it's a paving crew. Somebody temporarily the road, comes down behind it, makes a new road. And then stress fractures when one crew gets ahead of the other. And he gets stress fractures. So it's like, oh, okay, yeah,
It's good.
You said something to me that just stuck when we were spending so much time together in the clinic so many years ago, and it was amazing. I remember we had a young man come in that probably didn't get in your hands fast enough. I think he had fallen off the monkey bars and broken his forearm, and I can't remember what the path was, but it was probably like somewhere between 7, 8, 9 days from the fracture time, and you X-rayed it there inside and looked at it, and we looked at it together on the screen, and I'm like, there's a lot of black between those two bones. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna have to reset that. I'm like, oh man, are we gonna do this right now? And you're like, hell no, we're not gonna do it right now. I'm gonna take him to the OR. I'm like, it's only been like 8 days. He's like, you're like, exactly. That sucker's solid. He goes,
it's good to be young. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's where the X-rays lag behind. You always tell people if we cut you open, especially with fracture stuff's interesting because the X-rays always lag behind the actual healing. Because at a kid that age, they're already laying down callus like gangbusters. I mean, it's one of those things, and it's like, yeah. If
you're like, yeah, it's going to be tough to move it. I don't think I can move it here. I'm going to have to go cut it and reset it and the whole thing.
No, yeah. Not without making a lot of noise and scaring everybody out of the clinic. But yeah, if you get those acutely like in the ER, then that's super easy because everything's a little stretched out, everything's still a little loose. You kind of, and that's the fun part of like orthopedics is when you spend so much time in the ER as a resident, reducing all these fractures and really building that skill and seeing how you can put things back and then watching them heal. It's like phenomenal, and that's what's especially as a kid, as I always tell people, it's good to be young, because a kid like that, I watched my son go through it he broke his wrist and. 4 weeks later, he's dribbling basketball. Like, hey, that's crazy. Like, no pain, dribbling basketball. Like, I think we overtreat kids. We probably could, mobilize them less, and have them do more because that more is probably better for them. There's a tipping point, and you guys know this with rehab for sure. It's like stressing a tendon enough to let it heal,
right?
Not too much to re-tear it.
Just right, yeah.
So finding that balance there is so critical and. Kind of guiding this, and obviously, like a week after, you're not having somebody do dumbbell raises after a cuff. That's not going to work. But I mean, at some point, like it's probably okay, and we learn a lot from our non-compliant patients on what you really can do.
The best learning,
when they'll admit to you, like, yeah, I've been doing this.
I didn't know that was possible. All right.
And you're like, really? Tell me what you've been doing. You're like, really? Tell me about this. Like, oh, really? Okay, because you see something and they're like, man, you're doing really well.
Yeah.
And then they kind of admit to you a little bit what they've been doing. You're like, I like hip arthroscopy. I learned a lot. Like with labral repairs, some people are like, non-weight bearing 6 weeks, this and that, and like. Okay, I never like that, but I mean, because that's just bad. But, now it's like my labor repairs is like people coming back in, the young people like, usually I have them on crutches for 2 weeks, 50% partial weight bearing. They kind of come in like, I kind of walking around the crutches. Feels great. Does it feel good? Yeah. Okay, go do it then.
Yeah.
It feels good. It's got to be okay. Like your body's going to tell you if it's not okay.
It wasn't right.
There's really not enough research done on non-compliant patients. I wish that was like a big push of research because I feel my growth as a PT erupted when I decided to help Uriah Faber's group. He had a group of 40 professional athletes. Most of them, weren't sponsored by the UFC at the time. Which means, all of their healthcare was more or less just asking friends, can you help? And so I loved helping them because they're a fantastic crew. But they were about the most non-compliant athlete you could ever imagine. Whatever the doctor said, they were going to do the exact opposite. And I'm talking the worst of the worst. Cervical fracture, you're going to be a quadriplegic, fat chance. Rotator cuff tear, I think it's going to dislocate. I don't care. No matter what the diagnosis, they would just more or less do the exact opposite.
Now, do you think it was just like they're going off what they felt was right or what intuition told them or what their body would let them do?
Yeah, I think they have an insanely high tolerance of pain. They're also in phenomenal shape. These people, they typically don't drink any alcohol. They might smoke weed, but they typically don't drink. And they eat phenomenally well. And they usually take naps. There's a lot of sleep involved. And because they're fighting all the time, they actually don't really have much stress because they're able to just let go of all that stress during the training session. So you really have an optimal healing system. And they get to understand, like, hey, I think I can push here. So I think is a lot of like inherent like understanding of how hard to push the body. But I learned how hard people can actually go and actually be somewhat safe only if you've checked all the other boxes. Phenomenal sleep, well-conditioned. Yeah. But I learned so much of what's possible just by watching them and just questioning.
Do you think some of that kind of ability is because in a healthy trained state, they know how far they can push their body?
I think there's a lot to that.
Right?
Yep. Yeah.
Because, I mean, in that sort of style of fighting and everything else like that, it's you literally go till you're tapping out.
Yes,
I mean, so you're pushing your body to that. I think I can go a little more. Maybe I can't.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you get pushed to that without wanting to be pushed to that, and you're like, oh, yeah, I just did that.
Well, I think there's definitely that feedback. Like, I just got away with that. Let me do it again. And the only way I could buy trust with this group, I had learned how not to be a medical professional to get trust. I had to say, all right, you're doing all these things. Out of all the 10 things you're doing, these 2 things are probably the highest threat. So how about we just not do those 2 and do these other 8? And then they realize, like, I got 8 things to do. I like this guy. Where if I said, hey, you can't do any of those things, that's not a protocol, they wouldn't have trusted me. They would have done all 10 and then hurt themselves. Right. But I helped, like you said before, I kind of just pivoted. Like, I think you can focus here first. And I would get used to progressing them on the week. This week we're only going to do boxing with paddles. Next week we're going to do boxing. You have more contact. Next week you're going to do floor jiu-jitsu. The next week we'll start grappling. And if each week I gave them like a functional growth goal, they all learn to buy that. Like, I can do that. But
now, would they give you honest feedback though? Like, hey, I'm feeling this when I do this.
Once probably not. A lot of them, if I gave them like this 4-week progression, they would sandwich it into 2, and then it'd start bugging them. And I'd say, like, yeah, it's swelling because you're probably doing this. Like, you're right, I am doing that. So I would kind of call out, just by knowing their sport, I'd call them out. But, I got to really learn how, most protocols applied to a professional athlete, most protocols don't work at all. Like, throw all protocols that you could ever look up online, throw them out the door, because no pro athlete follows them. They do restricted work. They learn to reduce the velocity, reduce the power, and reduce the threat, and then you slowly unlock it over the course of 8 to 12 weeks.
Yeah. I think because, like I said, in that professional level athlete, no matter what it is, they have learned to train their body so well and have such a pulse on what their body can do in that extreme element that, okay, I know how far I can push it. I don't need you to tell me. I know. I know where my thresholds are. I know how. You don't know my thresholds. I know my thresholds. So don't tell me to do 10 of those.
Right.
I'm going to do what I think is right. Right. Because I know where I can push myself to. And then up to that point, I can get away with it. And then sometimes they cross the line. But I always tell my patients, you don't know where the line is till you cross it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, now that's too much. Okay.
As long as you just cross it gently, you don't jump 3 lines.
That's right. But I mean, that's like I said, okay, well, I'm getting a little inflamed. I'm getting a little swollen. Like, okay, we probably went a little over. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think the most influential surgeons and doctors and physicians and physical therapists were the ones that really customized your perspective on their life. And if you just kind of, like you said, have blanket statements of you can't do these 10 things, they just ignore you. Or if you're a little more contextual, like, all right, what are you able to do? Okay, and listen a little more to the story, then they learn to trust you.
Well, the protocol is an incredibly safe strategy, right? So it's like, how else do you organize something where millions of people could do something safely, right? You write it down and say, follow this guideline. And some of them are very, very general, some very, very detailed. But I think the key is that a pro athlete has a coach and some phenomenal tissue.
You're looking at the 1% of people that, so they definitely aren't going to fall into a protocol. They're the opposite end of the bell curve, this protocol hits, good portion of the population. They're way over here.
Yeah.
But then you need a coach, right? And I think that's what I think in healthcare what's needed is that you have to, as PT, we end up being the coach more often than not because we get to see people more often, get to engage with them, spend time with them. Yeah. I think that's really the job that we should be focusing on is like, let's coach you through this process. In some cases, you might accelerate the protocol from one angle. In other cases, you might decelerate the protocol based on how the person's doing.
I think we have to navigate this better because so much of these influencers online showcase every step, and I had this hip surgery. Now I'm able to jump in 3 weeks, and they showcase all these things because they get a lot of hits, they get a lot of likes. It's and then the orthopedists and the physical therapists have to bring that story to life of like, well, that's different for these things. For you, this is what we're going to do. And if you don't customize your approach, I think people just learn to ignore you, and they're just going to like, hey, if they can do it, I'm going to try and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like, what you guys do, you customize it to, and same thing in surgery, because you get the anatomy you get. You're doing from a procedural code standpoint, I did a rotator cuff repair. Okay. That can be a small, near partial thick or near complete thickness tear, takes a single anchor to sew it down. Okay. Or it's a 6 anchor repair involving the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and subscap. Lovely part for us is we get paid the same no matter which one we do.
One's a lot harder.
Same
that's
code.
not lovely because some of it's hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the easy
there's some
ones
sarcasm there. Yeah. But I mean, it codes the same. The funniest one that I always tell people is like a removal of deep implant or hardware removal. You have a single anchor in your screw that needs to come out. Little incision, 5 minutes, screws out. I'm taking your femoral nail out. Okay, same code.
Yeah.
An hour and a half later.
This is the video everybody asked about. Do they really hit people with a hammer like that? Well, sometimes.
Yes, they do. Yeah.
When indicated.
Yeah. So that's the funny thing about some of the thing that there is not real nuance to some of the things we do. And the worst abuse of this all was back in the era of the thermal shrinkage.
Oh, yes.
And you probably touched a little bit on that, and you may have got a little bit of that as well, where, you would go into ablate tissue. So you had a capsular shrinkage for the shoulder. So you go in with a little ablator one and little tic-tac-toe the capsule to shrink it, at the time, that's going to tighten that shoulder right up. Unfortunately, the entire capsule dissolved later on. Jeez. But the problem it got so good is because now that's a capsulorrhaphy that, normally suture, tie down, a complicated procedure, that took an hour and a half, hour. Now you can take a wand and do it in 5 minutes and get paid the same.
Oh, well.
Now I can do 15 of these in a day instead of 5 in a day. Same thing when you thermally ablate the ACL.
That's why they got abused so badly. I see.
That thermally ablate the ACL, that's an ACL reconstruction. Wow. And the bonus part is that because the ACL died, you got to come back and do another ACL.
Do it again.
Nasty.
So those sorts of things where there's some abuse within the system, on that end, because if you give people a range, that they'll find ways to get in there if you're not really doing the best. And to anyone's credit, at the time, they thought that this stuff was good. Sure.
Oh yeah, I remember that was the other one. We had slap my first 5 years. It was all slap repairs and thermocapsular shifts. Neither one exists anymore. Getting old.
Not really.
Getting old.
Well, that definitely speaks to the power of reading an op report. I always read your op reports because that gives me the context. Because, like you said, I see cuff repair, but then I see 3 anchors, or I see a buttress, or I'm like, I didn't realize the he debrided a little bit of your subscap, or whatever the case is. I think seeing those nuances, like post-operative after grad school. I think we learn a decent amount of grad school, but we don't learn nearly enough. And as the surgeries evolve, I think coming back to learning with an anatomy lab, or coming back to really make sure that you understand the nuances of the surgery and the op report, is still critical.
Yeah. And I think so much has evolved too with the way we treat people afterwards. From when I started, what protocols were for ACLs, for there weren't any hip protocols at the time, and then with shoulders and things like that. I mean, with regional nerve blocks now, patients do so much better. Their pain is so much less. You can start so much sooner on them, which is great for you guys. Mm-hmm. I mean, classically we start people 2 weeks out. We could probably start them sooner. Mm-hmm. But then you run into insurance issues where now you're a month in, you've used up all your stuff.
That's where we got to be good. Yeah, we got to recognize and coach that. Yeah,
so that's once again back to that professional model where it's like, it's unlimited, and they just do what's right to get them back and good. And we're controlled a little bit by how much we can do, where we can send people to. I mean, you guys are the pinnacle of therapy, and every patient should have access to you guys, sort of thing. But sometimes they can't. They get the fast food physical therapy, and where it's this is your protocol, and no disrespect to any of those people, because they're in a system that forces them
it's a system
to run by the protocol because they're seeing so many people, and They have PT aides that are just trying to help, and those people are, patients come back, they love their PT aides because that's the person they interact
That's the person. That's their influencer.
And those people, do a lot of work.
Yeah.
So that is...
They're key to that system's success for sure.
Yeah. So, but it's not the right thing, and that's the problem where, they talk about protocols, and I always get concerned when a therapist calls and asks me for a protocol. Like, why? Yeah. It's like... you should look at this person and figure out what you need to do for them.
Yeah.
I understand if it's like a really unusual surgery or something like that. Okay, maybe we get protocol, but otherwise it's like, no, you've done it this while. You should know how to do this sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Love that. Yeah. On that note, we talked with PacMed, with Paul and stuff, and I haven't talked to you about this, but I already know where you're going to stand on it. So, the idea was to do like a class, like to do a course for physical therapists, where we could do like an anatomy lab, do like a presentation. Here's how you fix the rotator cuff repair. Here's some of the nuances. Here's some of the variations that you could present on, and then speak a little bit about how we would, not so much the basics of the rehab, but some of the more things that we're doing to facilitate neuromuscular cueing and facilitate some of the better patterning of return, and put that into a lab-based format where, they get a little lecture from each, and then get some time in the lab with you doing dissection and doing some arthroscopy to like actually see it.
Yeah.
And then also doing a PT lab on the side where it's like, here's the exercise portion of it, and kind of seeing it as a collaborative front.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's phenomenal. Obviously, I mean, because I think therapists, and I've listened to you guys talking on your podcast about education, continuing education. You guys are doing a phenomenal job of continuing education for therapists, not only for your own therapist, but for everybody else out there. So that's super important because, once again, as we know, you can look at, I literally told somebody the other day, I think of all the surgeries I do, I didn't do any of these in residency other than the trauma stuff.
Right, yeah.
I mean, literally, we did arthroscopic ACLs. I didn't do any arthroscopic cuffs. I didn't do any hip arthroscopy. The techniques and things that I do now are different than what we did then. We did mini open rotator cuffs. And we did do arthroscopic ACLs. That's probably the only thing. But the way we did them then is far different than the way we do them now.
Yeah.
We were doing trans-tibial, all this stuff like that. Now we're all inside. We do all these different things. So,
and the reamers and stuff, the tools are different.
Phenomenal. Yeah. So the soft tissue, even though it's arthroscopic, soft tissue manipulations, very, very different. So for them to come out of PT school 20 years ago, like I finished residency 20 years ago, and think you're going to be doing the same thing you're doing then, you can't.
No.
You can't.
It's just so dramatic. The change is so dramatic, especially now. I think the technology is just insane.
And, I think the one thing that, we have a good collaboration between myself and you guys, talking, learning about patients and pushing the boundaries and trying to figure out how best to get people functional again. But some people, you may, so this may be great for the therapist, but some docs are extremely rigid in what they do, and their thinking may or may not have evolved to where it needs to be.
Well aware.
Yeah. So I mean, you may have calculated. I would love to get people. People always say, "Oh, my appointment's a week after surgery." Great, with PT. Good. Get in there. Start learning the things you shouldn't be doing. It's some things like you just can't do anything on them.
Well, they shouldn't, and that's exactly it, right? I think
some therapists, like I said, a lot of stuff with like you do a shoulder stabilization procedure. Like, hey, we got to let that thing heal. I want to make. I always tell my patients, I'm going to make you stiff because that stiffness is going to be your stability later on.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean don't do anything.
Yeah.
It's that be healthy, just don't use your shoulder.
Yes, exactly.
Do lots of things,
yes.
Just don't use your shoulder.
And that's the therapist's job, is come in and see the person, be like, hey, you're in this thing. Oh, we had this. I tell you what, let's talk about that. Let's talk about food. Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about getting other exercise in. I'm not going to move your shoulder much, if not at all today, but I want to make sure you know how to take the sling off and shower and put a shirt on, and let's take care of those variables.
Yeah. Work out the other arm, squeeze a ball.
It's extremely valuable.
Tell you what you can do.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I'm not going to sit here and like make your arm move. That's not what you need right now.
That's right.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah. So
well,
I think
it's great to have you on board. We'll look forward to that course.
Because
you're teaching
2025.
I'm in.
There we go.
No, I'm in for sure. That's because therapists really just always want to be better, learn more. It's fascinating. I mean, the level of interest, from the physical therapists that I've seen, they really, I mean, they're dedicated to improvement and continuing their education, learning more. Because like I said, the more you know about what happens in the OR, the better you can care for that patient.
I totally agree.
You know, so
And we just don't get it in school. Like we get, even if we did, for me, it was 20 years ago now. So to your point, that's all gone, you know?
yeah, it's different. I mean, it's evolved.
Yeah,
It's evolved.
100%.
Continues to.
Look forward to that. That'll be, so we're planning on doing like an upper extremity one maybe in the late spring and then doing a lower extremity one in the fall.
Yeah.
And having it be pretty cool where they'd be like, you know, like again, you take them through some arthroscopy and doing your techniques, but then also having a table where it's a more gross dissection where they could go back in the day and kind of, you know, feel it and touch it and put the tools in their hands. I know you leave people to put them tools in their hands too, but in the cadaver lab. And then we'll have the PT side. So it'd be cool. So more on that to come.
Man.
I want to do one more thing to ask about your practice as a whole. I think that you have a phenomenal practice that you've built, and you've certainly had some times, most very good and some turbulent, you know.
Yeah.
But you've continued this pursuit of private practice, and private practice is so challenging, and it's so rare. In your space, it's becoming more rare than it is in our space. In our space, it's rare. And we just talked about like the therapists. I think the therapists are phenomenal, but they're trapped in systems that don't allow them to really be phenomenal or be the best they could be.
Yeah.
And I think my question for you is like about your pursuit of staying independent, of staying private, the challenges that provides compared to, it would be easier. It would be easy for all of us to join a large group. And I used to call it throwing in the towel, which might be a little bit aggressive, but you know, like join a large group and just get paid, you know, certainly a fair rate, but I don't get to do what I love to do. Probably I get, you know, and I can't be the best I could be. And for me, that's a no-go. And
Yeah, I think
that's not necessarily the case in surgery. So I just want to see where you're at.
no.
with
I
that.
mean, I mean, if you look at the employed model versus private is flipped on its head.
Yeah.
From what it was when I started to what it
Yes.
is now.
Yeah.
It's gone from 70-30 to 30-70, maybe 80-20 even. And I think a lot of it has to do with the training that goes on now with the work hours, because residents have work hours that they have to work under. So they're in that mindset of shift work. When we came out, it was
it's not the abuse that you
you just work all the time.
Yeah, it wasn't shift,
And
just work.
and it's funny because you work so hard, and then you get into private practice, like I work harder now than I did then. So they're used to, and like I said, once again, it's what you're trained under. I mean, so it's not, they haven't seen, it's and I'm sure it was worse for the people that came before us.
Sure.
They were called residents because you lived in the hospital. That's why you were called a resident, because you lived in the hospital. You resided in the hospital. That's why they're called residents. We got past that area. We lived there in 24 hours, or more a lot of the time, but not actually had to sleep there, unless we were on call. So it's just how it's evolved. So, I mean, now when you look at a Kaiser model that'll allow you to work 4 days a week, be done at 5, regardless of what's going on, you're just done. So another shift is coming on to take over for you. Same thing with a kind of medical group or medical foundation, sort of a Sutter, Mercy Medical, something along those lines. Those are kind of in this area the big employers that are doing that. It's attractive. I mean, it is, because you show up, you don't market anything, you have a full clinic the first day you show up, and everything's great. And you don't need a reputation. You don't need anything. You'll be full. Mm-hmm. So it's good. You get a consistent paycheck and everything else. Whether in the middle of the pandemic, you got a paycheck. Okay, I get paid. I didn't do anything, but I get paid.
Yep.
For us, it was like,
Yes,
and we've been through a lot of it. Like I said, unfortunately, I'm in the same practice I was when I started here in 2005. And we've had, where we had 5 or 6 docs and 7 or 8 PAs, to where we are now with Dr. Cometto's retiring in a week. And it's just Dr. Sassor and myself. And then we have 3 great PAs. So we've kind of moved through all the different, orthopedic urgent care in our office, this and that, to now it's a very, it's kind of boutique type practice where, Sass focuses on hip and knee replacement. He's phenomenal at it. He's and complex revisions and things like that. And I kind of focus on the sports medicine side. So we don't do a lot of fracture work. If we have patients that we've taken care of that have some broken, we'll take care of those. But we're not seeing new fracture patients because We just don't have, honestly, time in our schedule to, take care of the time urgency that you need for a fracture.
Oh, right.
When we had 5 surgeons, one of us could find something to do that.
Sure.
Now, between the two of us, Sauce books out, God knows when. I don't like to be booked out too far because, my patients want to get surgery now.
Sure.
I always say if you have arthritis in 3 months, you'll still have arthritis. But if you have an ACL, you got a season to think you're getting back to. You don't want to wait 3 months to get your surgery.
Right.
You want to get it kind of sooner.
Yep.
So that side of it is important. But yeah, we're right now where we're at. This is the best we've ever been. Our team is phenomenal. Our leadership, phenomenal. We have really, really solid employee retention. We've got a great team. It's the Summit family, and we really do treat everybody like family. We know all our people. Actually, a family that work there. My wife works in her office a couple days a week. My son works when he can in between school and summer and stuff like that. But everybody is there is great. Our leadership structure is so great right now, and we talk a lot about it. We are the gold standard. We really, really want to be the employer of choice. All these things that you guys talked about, I know in your early in the season when you guys started the podcast, a lot about that and how you kind of structured your environment for people wanting to be here. And I think in private practice, because, whether it's the $20 minimum wage, whether it's all these other things that are being forced upon us, as, you talk to people at the hospital and they're like, oh, we have unions, so we pay more than that anyway. It's like, well, we can't do that. It's like, we really can't do that. So we have to find ways to take care of our employees, but really make them feel like they're part of something. We do, our teams do phenomenal stuff. They volunteer together. They go to the food bank. They go to here. They go to there. And they really, it's just phenomenal. I could never, these are none of my ideas. This is not, if any, I'm just fully supportive of it.
Yeah.
But what our leadership structure
Let's
does.
bring back a residency.
To make these people, happy where they're at.
Yeah.
And obviously, a lot of it comes from us. I always try to treat our employees very well. Thank everybody at the end of the day for what they've done, because every time we have, team meetings with our staff, Sauce and I always tell them, listen, we're good surgeons. That's what we do. Everything else we can't do without any of you. We can't schedule patients. I can't bill a surgery. I can't schedule a patient.
Yep.
I can't order an MRI. I don't know. I know when to order an MRI, but in the computer, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen unless you guys do that for us.
Absolutely.
So we tell them, so much of what you do, you're the first contact with the patient. They don't see us till
way down the road.
Yep. Someone calls into scheduling. They get the phone call answered. They get this, they get that, all this stuff. And then they get to us. And in the past, I can tell you, we would hear stuff from when it's not good. You hear from your patients when things are good. We don't hear them. We hear how good we are now. And it's amazing and that's because our teams have made an effort to, we have, these, KPIs, which I had to figure out what a KPI was. I go, yeah, we got KPIs. Yeah, we're doing good on those. Go, okay. So you look at all these things and everything's in the green. Okay, is that good? Green's good. Go, okay, green's good. Yeah. So we're doing all these things. We can tell you exactly for lobby wait time, not for our patients, for each provider. Okay, so for my patients, for Sauce's patients, how long they wait in room time. So when they're being roomed by the MA, how long they wait for the provider. How long the total visit is, how long they're with the provider. We can tell you all that data, and we can track it, and we know, and it's just like, hey, that's how you become gold standard.
Yep.
Knowing these data, knowing how. So when we started, our average length of visit was over an hour. Now we're hovering around 47 minutes. So it's very efficient. People getting in, getting out. We can tell you, the average hold time when you're on the phone, under 2 minutes. Okay, so if you call in, someone's going to answer the phone within 2 minutes. You know that. You're going to all these different metrics, and it's just such a great thing. But with that, if you're employed with someone, you don't even care about any of that.
No.
You'll never see. No one will ever tell you that. No one will ever tell you how long the patients wait, how long it is to phone call, anything like that. Not like somebody may be looking at it. Somebody may be.
Yeah. Well, probably the operations person, but that's the pursuit
that's
of excellence.
The beauty of what we can do is we can have an impact on those KPI indicators by what we do. Yep. And like I said, we're just in such a great place right now that we're going to keep doing this until someone drags us away from it, sort of thing.
That's awesome.
And unless things change so much that we can't do it anymore because they just charge us out of it in the sense of, that, the lovely, Medicare, if you look at reimbursement rates, you guys know this. I mean, you talked about this. It's like, it's gone down every year. It's like, okay. So it costs more to do what we do, but we get paid less to do what we do. I always tell this funny story, is that I had an electrician in my office, like, hey, what does it cost to do that box? And he's like, oh, it's like $75. Okay. What did you charge 10 years ago? Probably 50. It's okay. Now, 10 years ago, if I did your knee scope and just for a meniscectomy, I'd probably make $1,000. Now I make 600. The guy goes, oh, that sucks. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. We're the only industry that makes less now than we did 10 years ago.
Yeah. So how do you think, I realize it's going to move in that direction. And I think there's probably wins to the systemic healthcare and the larger groups, like, having the large take. I mean, do you think is it a huge disadvantage to lose the private practice in this way?
I mean, because we care. Not like they don't care.
Yeah, I totally get it.
But I mean, because I think if you work for somebody and somebody complains to you, you're like, oh, talk to Sarah about that.
Yeah. You deflect.
But for me, it's like, hey, and like when we used to get complaints, I would accept the responsibility and say, hey, listen, that's on us. Yeah, we'll try to do better. Now when I get the compliments, I'm like, it's the team. It's the team. Mm-hmm. We're very blessed. We have a great team. Everybody's phenomenal. We are so blessed to have the team we have. Yeah. Because it is them, and before it was me because I wasn't making the effort to change it. So I don't. It's hard. I mean, but there's just something about private practice because I remember Sauce was funny because like when I first came in, there's cases this and that, and that's a hard case. I don't know if I'm comfortable doing it. He's like, yeah, it's private practice. Do whatever you want. And it really is that, it's that way. And, don't get me wrong, we have a very good living. We do well. But the problem is we have to make up for that decrease in us by seeing more people.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of the employed guys is, they'll see 15, 20 patients in a day. I have to see 30 because as a private practice, our reimbursement per patient is 2 to 3 times less than what they make because they're a gigantic healthcare system and they get to go beat up on the, just not even lobby, just beat up on the healthcare insurance. Listen, we take care of 1 million of your patients. Yeah. Do you want us to cut off access to them? Because we will if you don't pay us this rate. And we're like, we've got 400 of your patients,
And you don't have the leverage.
And thank you for paying us what you do, know. And then that's the disparity. That's the hard part. It's like we should all get paid the same. I don't, that surgeon that's employed is a good surgeon, does a good job, but is he doing 3 times better than I do?
Yeah.
I don't think so. No. That's not my opinion.
It should seem like illegal for, an insurance payer to say, because you're big and strong and you threaten me, I'm going to pay you $300, and because you're pretty weak, I'm only going to pay you $50. But that's essentially what they do.
It's exactly what they do. Exactly.
Yeah, even though and not to take away from the big groups, I mean, there's phenomenal quality there as well. And there's many diamonds in the rough. But as a model, it doesn't seem to put the best interest of the patient first. In some models, certainly better than others. But
and for us, I mean, it's one of those things. We have to do that. We want to provide that gold standard care because if we don't, patients have a choice. Yeah. And we're very fortunate. Sauce and I, we have good reputations. We've been in town a long time. People want to come see us. And we're blessed that we've been able to take care of a lot of people, and they refer other people to us. So that's a blessing that we have. But in those other systems, you may or may not have to worry so much about the reputation because you just get primary care sends a referral over, and then your schedule is Dr. So and so. So we have to make patient outcomes, patient care, the experience, everything about it good. Otherwise, they just won't come.
Yeah.
It's your little mom and pop restaurant, and if it's not good, people will go someplace else.
I love that simple truth. You have to be excellent to survive, and I think that is the sink or swim mentality. It's also the extreme ownership mentality that when you're in the private world, you have to be better than everyone else.
Yeah, and Sauce gave a talk to the residents at UC Davis when they were all kind of graduating, trying to decide where they wanted to be, and he literally said, if excellence isn't what you want, private practice isn't for you. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yep, wow. That's it.
Love it. That was simple. Well said. Done. Take that down.
Clear. No, I'm glad to hear it's going so well, and your authenticity and your integrity, both for your patients and your people, shines through. We hear all the compliments as well about your group, so it's great to see.
Yeah, my dad's doing amazing, by the way. So, yeah, he's like a year and a half out. You didn't even know he had surgery, and so
well, that's because he's functional.
Yeah,
he's out doing stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
It's been a year and a half, really.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I barely, it's easy.
Crazy.
He complained about his knee for about a year and a half on all his issues, and then a little replacement, and it was like a charm. Probably live another 10, 15 years just because you helped him with that. And the key thing was regular movement. He was able to get back, but it's all those little things that you talked about, stress and lifestyle, and get moving early in a safe way. It was critical because he didn't lose any muscle mass by starting an early intervention, but having a good surgery allowed for not that painful. Was able to do things, but when you do it well, you're saving a lifestyle and you're saving a life. So it's.
But I think to your point too, with that is fortunately he had you who knew, hey, there's a tipping point coming. That if you don't get something done now, you're going to be on a big uphill climb because most patients say like, oh, why did I wait so long for surgery? Especially in that population with it's an arthritis thing, and they're like, oh, it's not that bad, But then you don't realize how much you start to take out of your life day to day.
That's it.
You don't know how much pain you kind of start to, pain avoidance stuff you do, you stop doing that. And then when they get back to doing things, then they feel good, and you're like, oh, I can do that again. I can do that again. And like, once the pain goes away, they didn't realize like how much pain I was really dealing with.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Those are the things in that population that it's a very kind of like our reimbursement. Well, I'll just see a couple more patients. They're just like, I'll just do a little less. I'll just do a little less. And then all of a sudden you realize like I'm not doing anything. And now to do things again, it's like you're stiff, you're weak, you're all these things. So having someone push them into like, hey, get something done. You're going to go down a dark alley that you can't get out of.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. That's back to what we were talking about before. Because if you get too immobile for too long, then it's really hard to recover. It gets worse.
It just nobody has that much time.
Yeah. I hate when I get people like, oh man, I wish I'd done this 10 years ago. Like, I wish you did too for so many reasons.
Oh, there's so many people I wish I saw you 10 years ago. Yeah. Because it's kind of jacked up now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot harder. Yeah. Well, Hunter, thank you.
Yes.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Good to have you.
Great teamwork.
Yes.